Manhunt is a 2017 film directed by John Woo. I'm a huge fan of John Woo. I've seen pretty much all of his films. I've seen some of his early martial arts stuff. I've seen all of his heroic bloodshed crime thriller movies. I've seen some of his dramas and stuff like his epics and stuff like that. This movie is probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. It is... I'm just going to tear into this movie. So basically the plot of this movie is there's a lawyer for a Japanese pharmaceutical company. He works for them. He gets their people off whenever they get in trouble. And one day he is going to a restaurant and he bumps into these two female assassins and they flirt a little bit. And then these gangsters come in and kick him out. And then the female assassins kill everyone in there. So it kind of sets up the pace that this is going to be an action movie, right? The opening scene is two female assassins shooting up a restaurant, and then you find out that they tied up the woman in the restaurant, the owner. And then the lawyer guy, he goes to a meeting, and the company's celebrating, and then he bumps into a woman, and then he wakes up next to her dead body. So this action movie now has become a sort of crime thriller, you know. It's called Manhunt because, you know, he's been framed for this crime and he's able to get away and then he's on the run. So it's like The Fugitive, you know, and you're like, oh, this is a pretty interesting concept. This movie starts off pretty strong. It has a lot going on. There's a lot of characters. But then this movie turns into just a full-on genre mishmash that just absolutely doesn't work. The movie tries to be an action movie like in style of John Woo. So you got pigeons flying everywhere, doves flying everywhere, people jumping and shooting and doing roles. And it doesn't fit with the Manhunt storyline. It's because it's like, imagine if you're watching The Fugitive with Harrison Ford, but every like 10 minutes he pulls out two guns and starts, you know, shooting at Tommy Lee Jones, and then Tommy Lee Jones has a machine gun and they're like, you know, dueling each other and like shooting each other on motorcycles. It doesn't work. And then the movie takes the asinine decision to turn into a science fiction movie at the end of the movie. And characters just completely fall off the rails. This one character, she's like the female partner of this badass Japanese detective. She just disappears for the last half of the movie. And then the other character, he's like, his name is Yamada. He is a badass Japanese detective who's trying to catch the lawyer guy. And the movie's so awkward though. For some reason they switch to English whenever the lawyer and the cop are talking to each other, and it comes off as really stiff. Same goes for the female assassins. They're like sisters of sorts, and they just start speaking English and it's really stiff, and like the switching languages is just so jarring. I think this movie was also co-directed by a Japanese director. That's why there's a touch of like swords and stuff used in here. But the movie just absolutely doesn't work. It's fiercely boring. The movie will just be like, okay, he's on the run. All of a sudden, everyone's shooting at each other with guns, and like there's this shootout in a lodge in the countryside that just absolutely sucks. Not because it's just like it's not well directed. It just doesn't feel organic. It feels so awkward. It feels like a completely different movie just leaps in there. And then they got this scene where this other female character, she lost her husband on her wedding day, and she keeps all of the mementos in a room, a locked room, and it's just so creepy because they're trying to go for like a she can't let it go, but she literally has like a blood-covered dress just sitting in the corner of the room. Like, how awkward is that? And then at the end of the movie, basically the lawyer guy finds out that the corporation he works for is evil. They're developing a super drug that basically gives people super strength. That's the science fiction aspect. So he just walks in there as a test subject, no plan. They turn him into a, you know, super strength zombie, and then everyone starts shooting at each other in the style of John Woo. Everyone can get shot like 3 or 4 times in this movie without dying because John Woo, he has this sort of style. It's one of his trademarks of having a movie where, you know, like a cop's trying to take down a vicious drug lord, and there's lots of shooting and violence and people going pew, 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 and people are getting like shot 4 times, but they keep going. It doesn't fit with the rest of this movie. This movie's like conspiracy, crime thriller, Fugitive style, and then it's got like these action sequences that are like John Woo style, but then there's a science fiction that makes it feels like a schlocky B movie, and then there's Japanese elements, and then there's just none of these elements work, and it's just so overblown. And then everyone turns into an action hero at the end. Even the girl who lost her husband, she's like cocking a shotgun and shooting at people. And then the assassin lady, she's doing stuff. And then there's like just so many plot lines going on, and the acting gets somehow worse by the end of the movie. The villains are just cartoonish and cheesy. I recognize some of them. They're in other movies that are pretty good, but everyone in this movie is stiff, mainly because of the English dialogue. But overall, nothing in this film works. I wanted to turn it off at the hour mark, but I used my Herculean patience to just sit around for the next 45 minutes. Oh, this movie is just really bad. It's just nothing works, nothing meshes well together. There's no redeeming qualities in this film. I'm not trying to insult John Woo or the co-director or anyone in this movie or the entire crew, but nothing in this film works. It's an absolute waste of time. Honestly, this movie has no redeeming qualities that I can think of. I give Manhunt a 0 out of 10. I do not recommend this film under any circumstances.